Hey everybody. So this is the long-awaited video that I've just not had time to make. So I want to apologize for just not being available. But yeah, there you go, Catherine, what's her name, eating a cupcake. I don't get why I'm not losing weight. Well, Catherine, I wonder why. So yeah, let's look at personality disorders again. And so this would be part part two of the cluster B personality disorders. And I'm gonna say that I'm not gonna say that I like these personality disorders, but they're really, really fascinating. And the first one that we're going to talk about is antisocial personality disorder. So when we talk about being antisocial, it's not talking to people. That's not what it's meaning. Antisocial means, in reference to this personality disorder, it's how people with this disorder break social and legal rules to get what they want. So basically, they're against society, so they're antisocial. People with this diagnosis ignore other people's feelings, they ignore authority, they tend to be aggressive and angry and kind of, you're focusing on yourself and your goals without caring about anyone else or what happens to anyone else. So some symptoms of this disorder, we see aggressiveness, impulsiveness, no remorse whatsoever. You see this in criminal activity. You'll often see these individuals have a criminal background. Disregard for anyone's safety, lying comes very easy to them, and consistent behavior that's not responsible, so irresponsible behavior. So I'm sure you've met people that have one or some of these traits. But when you're diagnosing a personality disorder, you got to meet the criteria. So someone that meets the criteria for antisocial personality disorder, you're going to see those symptoms and they're going to be pretty evident. I've met a couple of individuals with this personality disorder, and they have a criminal background. They've been to jail more than once. They really don't have any insight as to the trouble they caused, or they don't have any empathy for the people they've hurt. It's really it's about them, what they want, and getting what they want, regardless of the consequences. This one's kind of a dangerous one because they can injure and steal without remorse. They don't care what they do. It's about them. And so now we're going to move to the one that interests me the most and the one that I'm getting certified training for. And that is borderline personality disorder. We see this a lot in the media. We see this a lot on YouTube. We see it everywhere. This particular disorder, this one gets the most attention, I think. And these are individuals usually with, a trauma history, and they've developed maladaptive behaviors because of their trauma history. But people with this diagnosis have a weak sense of themselves and their self-worth. They really heavily rely on others for their own validation and to help them feel stable. They have inconsistent moods that flip-flop from, positive or negative. So it's black and white, very black and white thinking. And they can have what looks like mania, but it's not bipolar 1. It is borderline personality disorder. And what is interesting is that the two illnesses, bipolar 1 and borderline personality disorder, can have very similar symptoms. Like the really high mood, just, hypersexual, those kind of impulsive things. And some people with borderline personality disorder can have hallucinations. It's a very complex disorder. The treatment is dialectical behavioral therapy. That's the best therapy for it. Medication. That's like the golden treatment for that. You see them often idolizing, and they have a favorite person until that person does something they perceive as wrong, and then they absolutely hate them. So it's the push and pull of a relationship. It's I love you, I hate you. Um, there is a book, I'm trying to think of the name. Gosh, I wish I could remember it, but it's one that I recommended. It would help kind of develop an understanding of this disorder. But do your research if you're interested. It's a tragic disorder. Um, you know, very self-sabotaging. They're very lonely. They're afraid of being alone. They'll they'll push people, but they don't really want them to leave. But they'll push them and test them to see if they're going to leave because they have a deep distrust of interpersonal relationships. They frequently get angry. They have feelings of emptiness. Their relationships are not solid, especially romantic relationships are very tumultuous. They can be very impulsive. Again, we have that black and white thinking. Um, you know, risk-seeking behavior, so unsafe sex, and they often will make suicidal threats or do some behaviors to hurt themselves. And that one patient described it as they wanted to feel something. So they did something to themselves just to feel something. So like I said, it's a really tragic disorder. A lot of pain, a lot of emotional dysregulation, but it can be treated. Again, this particular disorder fascinates me, and I have a lot of empathy for anyone with this diagnosis because they started out as a fresh baby in someone's arms and then somebody did something, you know? But it is treatable. I have noticed that people, as they get older, they tend to that tends to slow down a little bit, but not in every case. So let's move on to histrionic personality disorder. I have seen this once. So somebody with histrionic personality disorder, they want attention all the time, and they'll actively seek out that attention. They are very aware of how they look, and their behavior is kind of over the top. So they have these over the top reactions to everything. They have strong opinions without actual knowledge or facts. They're very dramatic in their presentation. Again, they need that constant attention. Very shallow emotionally, and it will kind of vary pretty quickly, and they're easily suggestible. You don't see this one as much, at least I haven't from my own personal experience, but it's like if they dropped a glass, they would be you would hear very histrionic. They'd be very dramatic and screaming and wailing and crying if that was their favorite glass. That's really kind of a weak example, but that's kind of that emotional response that they have. And so this next one in the cluster B, it's narcissistic personality disorder. And we have seen this one. It's really prevalent on TikTok. I think people like to throw this diagnosis around like they do with borderline personality disorder. So, you know, people with narcissistic personality disorder believe that they're better than others. They don't really have high self-esteem despite what they show, but they do believe they're more important than anybody else, and they need to be treated as important, you know, more important than everyone else. They really don't like criticism or things they don't like. So you may have seen someone with some of these traits and you're like, oh, they're narcissistic. That's not necessarily the case. However, you go deeper into it, they're very manipulative and they'll take advantage of people. And so we have all of this terminology like gaslighting, because if you don't feed into their idea of perfection and it suddenly doesn't become about them, you're usually going to get a negative response from them. They will drop you like a hot potato. It is all your fault. All of their problems are based on your lack of ability to meet their needs. So you'll also see people, they're arrogant, they're envious, they expect praise, they want favors, they expect people to do things for them. They're really kind of a little delusional about their power and success, or they have fantasies of power and success. And so if you don't fill that cup, again, you get the negative response, and they can be very abusive. And they won't acknowledge anything that you've done. So if you like won the election, if you became president, they're going to say, oh yeah, well, I did this. And they won't acknowledge or give you validation for whatever it is that you've achieved. There is a lot of emotional abuse involved with narcissistic personality disorder towards the individual they decide to target. You've heard of love bombing. They will be this charismatic, I love you, and just like you're fabulous, you're everything I've ever wanted. My last boyfriend or girlfriend weren't like you. That kind of stuff, you see that in the romantic relationships. Narcissistic personality disorder, again, it gets really thrown around a lot. You know, if somebody does this, oh no, you're a narcissist. Or if you do this, you have borderline personality disorder. You really have to look at the cues, get your DSM, pull up the criteria, and that will tell you what to look for. And with each diagnosis, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, you have a set of criteria that you need to meet in order to have that diagnosis. That being said, people can have pieces of these different disorders. Little pieces. It doesn't mean they have a full-blown diagnosis, but they've got some, traits here and there that they drive you nuts. But that doesn't mean they have a personality disorder. It just means they've got some behaviors that, are kind of negative and maladaptive. But this is the presentation for Cluster B. Again, I apologize for this taking so long to get to you. We will do Cluster C next. And then I think we'll branch out into maybe some of the other lesser known disorders, listen to me, disorders, because there's a ton of them. But this is Cluster B in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please engage with me in the comments below. If you liked this video, please hit like. And if you kind of stumbled upon my channel, please subscribe. That would be great. And everybody, and I keep getting email, so I apologize. But thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being patient. And I will come up with another video hopefully sooner than this one. Take care, guys.